Good morning once more. Welcome to this session on multiple intelligence. Isaiah Onekutu is my name. I'll be taking you through this session and trust to have a wonderful time together this moment. All right, we want to look at multiple intelligence in this modern world of education that we are in. And it has been a subject that has been around for quite some time now, but many a times we don't apply it to our lessons or to our pupils while we teach them in the classroom. All right, we want to look at how far this can go and help us to improve in our teaching activity. Okay, now this is a theory that was propounded by Howard Gardner, and he actually talked much about teachers laying too much emphasis on mathematics, on language, and ignoring the other strength of the learners. And we've come to discover that these learners have abilities in several other areas, which we are not really laying emphasis on. And it actually says science, maths, and language are not the only ways to exhibit intelligence. There are other ways of exhibiting intelligence. People exhibit intelligence in more different ways. And each type of intelligence is as very important as the other ones. Now, basically, the intelligence that is more prominent in the four walls of our classroom, traditional classroom, is the logical mathematical intelligence and the linguistic intelligence, and which deals with more of writing and solving mathematical problems. And we basically classify our learners as to whether they are good or bad, depending on this intelligence, and which is actually limiting the capacity of these learners. Now, Gardner goes ahead to define intelligence as the capacities to solve problems or to fashion problems which are valued in one or more cultural settings. And that is to say, in the long run, this intelligence is supposed to be a product that will be seen or visible in the society. All right. His theory suggests that the traditional notion of intelligence is based on IQ. And many a times when we test these learners with the paper and pen, and if their performance is not as good as we expect or not above average, our conclusion is this learner is bad or this learner is below average, ignoring the other aspect of the abilities of these learners. And that's what we want to see, how this multiple intelligence can help us to improve in our daily classroom activities with the learners. Okay, let's move on now. Now, Gardner classified this intelligence into 8 different areas. And the first one, which I mentioned before, is the linguistic intelligence. And what that means is that the learners are word smart. They are good with the words. They can read. They can interpret the word. They can do things with the word. We have the logical mathematical intelligence, and this is number-based. They can reason smartly. They are very sharp when it comes to mathematical solving of problems, analyzing mathematical problems. They are very, very good at that. Now we have the spatial intelligence, and the spatial intelligence actually deals with more of what they can see, concrete things they can see. Okay, things they can touch, they can see, deals with pictures, these with videos and the likes like that. There are learners that are very good at things like this. They're good at drawing things. We have the bodily intelligence. That's when you talk about the kind aesthetic. They just want to move their hands. They want to move around. They want to carry out activities. Now, these learners, if you don't plan your lesson in this order, they find it difficult to flow with you. Now, there's a musical intelligence student that can transform what you're teaching them into music. They like learning with music. We have the interpersonal intelligence. And interpersonal intelligence are those that like working in group. They love role play. They like to do group work. And that's good think, pair, share activities, stuff like that. Then we have the intrapersonal. These are self-smart students, self-smart learners. They just want to learn on their own. They prefer thinking. They don't like distraction. They don't like talking too much with others. They can sit and fashion out creative ways of doing things on their own. They will have the naturalist intelligence. They are nature smart. They just like to travel. They want to see things around. So Howard Gardner was able to propound this theory to bring into fore all of these 8 intelligences. And what he's trying to let us know, we shouldn't limit our learning to just the linguistic and the logical Mathematica. Okay, now theory of multiple intelligence has provided educators with a new view of assessment. The normal traditional way of assessment is just the pen and the paper, which is quite limited. But now the question is this: how can we really tell if students are grasping the content that is being taught? The question is, do they really understand the information we're passing across to them? When students have multiple choices in ways to demonstrate their knowledge, the evidence of their learning is more visible or becomes more accurate. And that is true. We need to present to them multiple ways in which they can learn. And that is to say, we need to identify their abilities with respect to these various intelligences. To actually engage in an authentic celebration is to witness a true display of student understanding. And this can be done when we factor in their intelligence. And now, the theory of multiple intelligences has provided how a paper and pencil test does not touch true understanding. Now, some students express their grasp of the content by designing visual presentations. They need visual presentations. Of course, there are learners that merely seeing the words alone, merely hearing what you're telling them, they can easily understand what you're trying to pass across to them. But at the same time, we have other learners that will want to see a pictorial representation of this information. Now, constructing of 3D models, participating in a debate session, they want to talk. And many a times you have learners in the classrooms that you always see them engaging in discussion with their peers. And that is because they prefer to learn by discussing. They prefer to learn by talking and not just keeping them quiet. Now, if you have the intrapersonal intelligent student, now these ones are always quiet. They like thinking within themselves. Okay, but when you have the interpersonal learners, they like to discuss. And that means if you capture this within the 4 walls of your classroom, you create a scenario where they can discuss things. Of course, we also have conduction of field experiment, field investigation. They just want to do things. So paper and pencil tests have no room for such kind of talent. They don't have room for such kind of talent. So if you're a teacher that you are just restricted to the paper and pen kind of assessment, then you have so many learners that might not be carried along. Of course, there is a fact that no 2 learners learn the same way. No 2 learners exhibit the same kind of intelligence. There could be multiple intelligence and their learning styles could be different. And if that be the case, then we have to adopt these intelligences into planning our lessons. Now we're going to see how a teacher or what styles you can adopt by having at the back of your mind these intelligences or these learners in your classroom. We want to see this teacher's activity based on these intelligences. Now, the linguistic, for instance, as a teacher, you could use lecture method in your classroom, knowing that these children are what smart. When you talk, they listen and they can understand what you say. Now, you could, at the same time, with the same lesson, there could be discussion forum. Okay, in this discussion forum, the learners that couldn't really capture the lecture you're passing across to them can actually benefit by discussing either with their peers or discussing with you. Now, there could be a debate. And in this debate, when topic is being given to them, they can fashion out creative ways and from their thought, from their thinking, okay, from their thinking, they'll be able to discuss this and learn from each other. Now, there could be word game, it could be role play. Of course, they love role play a lot. Literature students can go around with this. You give them role to play and they dramatize this role. And they could tell stories from this. They could read, they could do presentations. Now, all of this falls within the linguistic learners, a linguistic intelligent student. So you could adopt this. And now, in a particular lesson, it would be good to have 2 or more of these learning styles, having at the back of your mind these intelligences in the classroom, and that helps a lot. And in a particular lesson, you can adopt so many intelligences mixed up together. Now, it brings about variety, and of course, variety is the spice of life. When there's variety in the lesson, students don't get bored, they don't get tired, they don't get fed up. They always want more, more and more. Okay, let's go to the logical Mathematica. Now this involves more of problem solving, experimentations, and students love experiment a lot. They love experiment. They want hands-on activity, what they can do, what they can feel, what they can touch. They like it a lot. They love movement. They don't like just sitting in one place. So experimentation spices up the lesson a lot. Taking measurement. In physics class, they want to take measurement. They love it so much. They want to record values. They want to analyze. They control the variables. And they test hypotheses. They predict what is going to be the outcome of whatever they're doing. Now, it could be number games and they draw conclusions from all of this. They give you explanations. Now, this is very, very important for us to take note. Then the special learners. Now, this, you could use computer simulations, videos. They watch videos and they're able to tell you what they are seeing. You could use charts, graphs, pictures, photos, visuals. Okay, all these representations. Now, it captures the various kind of learners. Of course, we have two kind of learners. We have the kinesthetic learners, we have the visual learners, and we have the auditory learners. There are some by mere listening to what the teacher is saying, they grasp and have understanding of what he's saying. But there are others at the same time, they prefer to see what you're telling them. And there are other categories that they want to carry out. Whatever you have said, they want to practicalize it. So if you encapsulate all of these into your classroom, you're going to be a great teacher. So guided imaginary activities, concept maps, you could use concept map. Concept map is very, very important, where the concept of what you're going to teach, of the content of your lesson, is being mapped out. And students can easily do this. When you use concept map, V diagrams, mind maps, all of this is an interesting activity that you can carry out with these learners. Then we have the modeling kits and the likes like that. So many other information, so many other things you can do that will make this, the carry out those that are special in intelligence. Then the bodily intelligence, these are those that like working with things, with materials, most especially experimentation. The biology teachers, the chemistry teachers, and physics, and all of that, using lab equipment. They like to set up the lab. They like to do experimentation. They like to conduct activities all around. These are bodily, they just want to, they're kinesthetic learners. They want to do activities. They want their hands to be busy. Okay. Now, if you plan your lesson based on this, and of course, it means as a teacher, you need to identify these learners. That's what it means. You need to know their abilities. You need to know which kind of intelligence they exhibit more. Which one do they show more interest? So when you have these learners, you categorize them in your class. And what that means is that if you are planning your lesson, you have at the back of your mind the various type of intelligences being exhibited by your learners. Now, role playing falls into this as well. Then the musical intelligence, of course, there are students that are good with the rhythm. They are good at singing. Now they could do a song with a periodic table. They could do a song with anything at all. And that is interesting. When you engage these learners based on their ability and their capacity, now you discover that their interest in the subject becomes more likely than before. They improve in their learning abilities. Why? Because you identify their strength. Okay. Now let's see the personal intelligence. Now, the activities you can carry out as a teacher could be a reflection upon own learning. They can reflect upon their own learning. Metacognitive, and this deals with metacognitive skills. They need to think about thinking. You need to guide them to be able to think. This deals with critical thinking. Okay. And at the same time, now they ask lots of questions, pause situations, create a scenario where they ask themselves, am I really paying attention to what I'm doing? Am I learning? And if I'm not learning, then what do I need to do to learn? Am I understanding? And how do I understand? What do I need to do to understand? What should I do to understand this? What do I lack to achieve this goal? Why am I taking this subject? Now that is what it means. There is a self-reflection that goes within. And all of this comes from series of practice and different activities they're able to do. So we have learners like that. They reflect within themselves what they need to do. They can drive themselves to learn. So you help their metacognitive skills to grow. Then we have the social learners. Of course, these are those that like talking so much. They like talking. And many a times we see them as learners that are the noisemakers in our classrooms. Of course, they are not just noisemakers. All they want to do is to talk. They want to be part of your lesson. They want to participate in your lesson. They want to contribute to your lesson. So if you give them the room, then you can bring out the best in them. They are cooperative learners. They can cooperate with others. Now they love to play the role in your class. They love to be the group leader in the lesson. They like to carry things around. They want you to give them the assignment. They want to take down the records. Okay, they want to create the group. And all of these learners, if you can't recognize them, now it's a great deal when you recognize the ability of a child. They feel so happy about it. Now, they want to work with their peers. So it could be peer tutoring. Okay, now whereby you give a role to a particular child or learner in a group, and you can ask him or her to explain the role to their learners. Now, you will see that they feel so happy to do that. Now, group project is one area these learners can be able to identify their strength. Of course, there are some learners that can understand more if their peers explain something to them than even the explanation from the teachers, because they feel more confident if they're with their peers. They feel more relaxed if they're with their peers. But if all of this is taken away from them, which means learning becomes quite difficult. And of course, last one here, the naturalist. Now, discussing environmental issues. They discuss environmental issues. They use real natural materials that they can see within them for scientific investigations. They like to investigate things. They just like to discuss things like that. And they could just look at things. Okay, why is that? If the sun is high up there, there's more likelihood that there's going to be rainfall. Stuff like that. Okay, reading about the environment, enjoying the nature. Okay, they like traveling a lot, exploring natural places, beaches, and mountains. So these are different types of learners. Of course, we have so many learners that might not be good with linguistic or logical Mathematica, but at the same time, they have the musical abilities in them. It is inherent. Some of these things are natural and some of them need to be developed. But if we restrict these learners to just the logical Mathematica and the linguistic, then what we are doing is that we are killing the abilities and the capacity that is in these learners, and that wouldn't take them far. So I'd like to leave us with this question. What is your strongest intelligence? What is your strongest intelligence? And for your learners, what is their strongest intelligence? Identify their strongest intelligence. Build it from there. And one thing about intelligence is this. When the strongest intelligence is identified and built, other intelligences begin to manifest. And many a times why we don't see the abilities in these children is because we downplay their own intelligence and we want them to flow at the normal traditional intelligence, which is the logical Mathematica and the linguistic intelligence. But the first thing to do is to identify their own intelligence and build their intelligence by planning your lesson in accordance with their own intelligence. And if we're able to do this, then we have begun to make learning to be easy. We are bringing learning to their doorsteps. And I believe this is going to help us as teachers to improve in our teaching abilities, in passing on information to the learner. Thank you very much. See you next time. I'm Onekutu one more time.